My name is Rebecca Kiesling, and I have the honor and privilege of being the executive director of, hey, that's better, of NAMI Northern Virginia. We're the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and we're a national organization. Our headquarters happens to be in Arlington. We have 50 state organizations and over 650 local affiliates. Some are super big. Our largest is in San Diego. And then we have a large percentage of our affiliates are run by volunteers. So volunteers with lived experience, and that's really who we are. We are the peers, we're the family members, and we're the supporters of people who live with mental health conditions. I don't talk about mental illness a lot because there's so many people that go undiagnosed. So I talk about mental health concerns. My why. When I graduated from GW for my undergrad, the day after I moved to Arlington, did you know that? I have 3 kids, 3 daughters. I now live in Fairfax County, so they're all either graduates or I have a sophomore in high school, my 3 daughters. I started at NAMI in April of 2022. Passion job. I've worked in and around nonprofits for most of my life, and when this job came open, I knew it was where I really belong because of my own lived experience with my dad in and out of psychiatric hospitals. One of my daughters lives with bipolar 1. It's my passion to be here. In July of 2022, I got a phone call. And I'm so thankful that she called because she sent me 2 emails before that I hadn't gotten back to. But it really started a journey for me. This wonderful woman named Deneen, 6 months before, she had lost her son, her 31-year-old son, to suicide. A black family, they live in Chantilly, all of the resources. He was being treated for anxiety and depression, but she didn't know all of his feelings. She didn't know how bad things were for him. And talking to her and hearing her story was such an eye-opener for me. I love this area. I love the diversity of this area. But I'm an Irish girl from Boston. I have all the privilege in the world. And starting that journey, hearing her story, but then so many people that have opened their hearts, told me their real story, it's helped me to know where we as NAMI can be impactful. And what that can be to the black community, to the 181 languages that are represented in Northern Virginia. Whether that's through advocacy, it's through listening and learning, it's through support groups. All of our services are free, and we really do stand behind mental health for all. So, why is this important in our community? For the immigrant populations that we are so proud to have here, we know that immigrants face quite unique mental health challenges that can increase their suicide risk. You're going to hear me talk about suicide a little bit because today is almost the last day of Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. In the Black and African ancestry communities, we know that in between 2017 and 2021, deaths by suicide increased in Northern Virginia 56%. 56% within that short time period. Suicide increased for young black Virginians for ages 18 to 34, 69%. We need to do something about this. We know in our Korean and Korean American communities, the stigma against mental health is high, and there's a huge underutilization of services. We can talk about our Hispanic and Latinx communities. They accounted for 4% of all suicide deaths in the state. And nationally, our suicide rate in our Hispanic communities has increased by 10%. But beyond just suicide, in our Hispanic communities, we found that in Fairfax County, 42% of Hispanic students say they have a higher than average rate of persistent sadness. These are all things that we can tackle. So what I just spoke of is why NAMI and NAMI Northern Virginia continue our work. We're not hiding from equity. We're not running away from our work towards mental health for all. We continue to convene, to learn, and to create programs that we really hope will create true change and not just put a Band-Aid on things. And that's why we're here tonight. Now, about 2 years ago, I sat down to coffee with a man that on paper looked pretty interesting. It was supposed to be about a half an hour. 2 hours later, I could have gone on all day, and I still feel like that today. He's become my friend, my cheerleader, my teacher. His willingness to share his story with me, but with everybody he talks to, is a gift, and he is a treasure. So I'm going to introduce, I'm going to read about you. I'm going to introduce our keynoter for tonight, J.D. Spain. Julius J.D. Spain was elected to the Arlington County Board in November of 2024. He's a retired combat veteran with the U.S. Marine Corps, who's deployed in the first wave of American troops to Iraqi freedom, 4-year diplomatic assignment in Brussels, congressional fellow in the United States Senate, advisor in the Office of Legislative Affairs for the Marine Corps. He retired from the Marine Corps in 2016 with the highest enlisted rank as Master Gunnery Sergeant and was awarded one of the nation's highest military honors, the Legion of Merit. JD loves Arlington. He was appointed to the Civil Service Commission, elected as president of the Arlington branch of the NAACP, which he served 2 terms at. He has more awards through that than I have hands. Fingers, not hands. He is a member of George Mason University's President's Innovation and Inclusive Excellence Councils, degrees and credentials from Mason, UMD, Georgetown. He and his wife have been married for 32 years, and are parents of 3 adult children and have a gorgeous granddaughter. I am so honored to introduce you to my brother and my friend, J.D. Spain.
Good evening, everyone. Oh, we can get a little louder. Good evening. All right. I had to come out here a little bit scripted tonight because many of you that know me, I'll go off on a tangent. So I got to stay disciplined here. But to everyone being here this evening, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And to NAMI Northern Virginia, and for all the partners, many of out there in the hallways, you've done so much to make this very important conversation possible, Rebecca, and we thank you for that. As we gather here during Suicide Prevention Month, we must pause, my friends, and reflect not on the statistics, and thank you for sharing those statistics, Rebecca, but on real lives, families, and futures behind them. For me, this topic is not academic. Quite honestly, it's personal. And why do I say that? And I'm going to try not to get choked up here because I have a few things to talk about. But in the past 10 years, I've lost nearly 4 people who are close to me due to mental health crisis. And every single one of them was black or a person of color. My nephew, his name is Adam, my first cousin, my dad's brother's son. He went on a bridge in Columbia, South Carolina one night a few years ago, jumped off the bridge, tried to kill himself because he was having a mental health breakdown. My nephew, this is my brother's only son, just a few short years ago, in Conway, South Carolina, was having a mental health breakdown, got a hold of a shotgun, went and stood on the porch of Brown Chapel AME Church and almost tried to take his life. It was only until Horry County Police, my parents, and a few other people showed up that they were able to de-escalate the situation, and he got some help. A fellow Marine, a person I served with in the Pentagon, he made it to the highest rank of E9. He's also a combat vet. Lived in Maryland. His name is Ramses. Went and worked on the Hill and the Congressional Fellowship. In fact, I selected him to go work on the fellowship program. Retired. He and his wife were in Maryland. They opened up a little place for kids, for youth. And on one Sunday afternoon, about 2 years ago, had some friends over to his house watching Sunday football. He went into the back room, and there everyone heard, I was not there, but they heard a gunshot. Killed himself. Mental health crisis. And I, and my family, had a child who also took steps years ago to hurt themselves, and we didn't see it coming. So I tell you all that as I stand here today at 53 years of age, that I've seen it. I felt it, and I know I'm not alone. That's why in 2014, and I remember the year, I made a decision to have and start therapy for myself. I was in the Pentagon. And, being a combat vet, my wife was like, you always a little antsy. And so, I'm not going to no therapist. But I went and took the big step and got therapy. And I can tell you now that it's one of the best decisions I've made in my life. Not because it made all my problems disappear as a man, as a black man more especially, but because it gave me the tools to deal with all the issues, the societal issues and vices that were going on in a very honest way, with some strength, but also with grace. So here's some realities in communities of color. For too long, and I can tell you this, because I have a father who was also a Vietnam vet, and I grew up in the 70s. I'm a Gen Zer. Gen X, excuse me, get my stuff all mixed up. And, I was very young, but my father, I could tell something was going on with him. My mom and dad raised 3 boys, but he just was not there. And I come later on to find out the stories that my mom told me when my dad came home, that they had to send him down to Fort Gordon, Georgia, because he had a mental breakdown. But he never really sought help. Went to church, talked to people, but he never really got the help. God bless him. I saw a lot of things. And he's 75 years old today and still living strong, but I saw things. Mental health has been whispered in communities of color, if it's mentioned at all. I can tell you right now, when I grew up, we didn't talk about mental health. We even inherited, my friends, a stigma from generations taught to just pray about it. Go see the preacher. Tough it out. Or keep it in the family. And don't get me wrong, because I'm a person of faith. I'm a Methodist. I subscribe to that. Faith and family are pillars of strength, but they can't be the only support systems that we rely on. In black and brown communities, we're often taught, as I said earlier, to be strong, to survive, to never show weakness. We should say this in the Marine Corps, and I'm an old drill instructor. We should tell the recruits, pain is a sign of weakness leaving the body. But what if vulnerability is also strength? What if asking for help is how we reclaim our power? right? And our culture, quite honestly, shapes our conversation, my friends. And cultural perspectives matter. They shape how we interpret mental health, how we seek or avoid care, and how we support one another. When someone hears voices, is it a spiritual crisis or a psychiatric one? When someone is depressed, are they seen as lazy? Or do we recognize the signs? That's why we must create a cultural response in spaces like we have here today, where people feel seen, heard, and understand, not judged, ignored, or any of that. So I asked the staff at county government within the Department of Human Services to give me some numbers so I can share with you what we're doing here in Arlington. And it's some real work, my friends, to meet the challenge head on. So in FY 2024, over 6,600 behavioral health clients were served through our Department of Health and Human Services, which includes 24/7 emergency services, outpatient psychiatric care, community support to reduce hospitalizations, youth treatment programs, senior mental health care, and even jail-based mental health restoration programs. And I do want to take a second to acknowledge our sheriff here today. Jose, raise your hand. Let's give him a round of applause. Our sheriff friends, we've had some long conversations about what's going on in our jail system, and I'm here to tell you today that we need to be behind him and what he's doing in those programs to help those individuals that have been incarcerated, because not everyone's incarcerated, has a problem in society. A lot of that is underlining mental health issues. So thank you, Sheriff, for what you're doing in your leadership. And we will continue to invest and help you in the best way we can. We've seen real investment, even in this past year's budget, the DHS budget, where we increased by 6% to over $205 million, the behavioral health team growing with new Spanish-speaking specialists, mobile outreach therapists, and more. Our county was among the first in Virginia to implement the Marcus Alert system, ensuring behavioral health experts. Where's Tiffany Jones at? There is Tiffany. Thank you, Tiffany, for what you do. Ensuring behavioral health experts like Tiffany, not just law enforcement, respond to crisis with compassion, my friends, and training. We now have 988 call integration, real-time dashboards, and a commitment to tracking racial and ethnic data to ensure equity in service delivery, from school-based mental health programs in our high schools and middle schools to crisis intervention in our jails. I talked to our sheriff and communities. We're seeing a shift from reaction to prevention, from punishment to support. But let me sit here and tell you today that systems alone aren't enough. Despite all this progress, we know that the programs don't heal people. Who can tell me who heals people? People. Thank you, Al. Thank you, my good friend. People do. Systems only work if communities trust them. And trust is built through relationships, representation, and consistency. That's why we need more cultural, competent clinicians, greater community engagement like what we're doing here tonight, easier access to care in languages people speak and are setting in where they feel safe. And thank you, Rebecca, for bringing up the piece about all the languages in Northern Virginia. We know down here in this part of Arlington, in zip code 22204, we're the world in a zip code. But do we have the right size services to accommodate and be ready for those communities that need us? I will say we do not. So there's more work to be done. And we need honest conversations like we're going to have tonight, and I can't wait to hear from the panel, to chip away at the stigma and silence. We must do more to support our peer support models. And sometimes the most voice The most powerful voice is not always the professional one. It's someone who's been there and made it through. I'm about to get here and close in a second. But our pathway, my friends, must be rooted in a couple of things. We beat this word like a drum, and I would argue that a lot of people don't even understand what it means. But we must think about equity and making sure every zip code has access to care. We need to empower our youth. I have a 32, a 31, a 26-year-old, and a 4-year-old daughter. Right? This room, mind you, today, I wish could have been filled with 18 to 35-year-olds so we can talk to them, empower them, get them engaged. They should be standing up here talking in lieu of me. They should be here tonight on this panel, hearing what they want. Education for our families and our faith leaders and neighbors so they can spot the signs. We're not trying to make you all therapists, but so we can spot the signs when someone is in crisis. And we need the economic investment, not just from Arlington County and our budget, but I would also argue that when we have new businesses that want to come here, when we have folks that come here and think about development, and we put a certain amount of money that goes over into the AHIF fund for housing, we need some level of investment, guess what, to go to community programming. Because I know right now the nonprofits, y'all are the one that do the work. Government's not going to solve all the problems. So we must make mental health, wellness a community value, not just a medical issue. So in conclusion, my story, Mom, our responsibility. I shared my story tonight, and I mean this. I shared my story tonight early on, not for any sympathy, but to say, just as sure as I'm standing up here live and in color, that the challenges that are aforementioned are real. And it's closer to home, my friends, than many of you may think, especially in the BIPOC community. Mental health does not discriminate, but access, stigma, and support systems do. Let us be the generation here that breaks the cycles and get unmuted, and that ensures mental health for all, not just in words, but in action. So, I want to thank you to NAMI. I want to thank you, Rebecca. Let's keep talking. Let's get to work. And as long as I have breath in my body and of sound mind, that I will be a champion in this space to ensure that no one gets left behind when it comes to mental health. When I look on the news, when I hear in my community of young folks and people that are taking their lives, the question comes to me, what more could we have done as a collective? So I challenge each and every one of you tonight, when you leave here, think about ways to get involved in your community. Think about how you can go and help a young person. They are our future. We don't need to make these events that we have all pro forma in the sense that the same people come up all the time. Bring in folks. Get engaged. Now is the time. And I don't even want to go into the effects of what's going on nationally and how that's affecting the emotional well-being and mental health of young folks and a lot of Americans. There's a crisis. God bless you. Thank you for having me.